Hi guys, Saransh here. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about how to shortlist universities if you want to go for higher education using GRE and TOEFL. So let us begin with this. So the key criterias which you need to remember in order to shortlist the best universities to optimize your chances for admission are research interest, exam scores, funding, and location. So let us start with the most, least important criteria, which is location, because location is such a factor that won't affect many of you, but sometimes it is the criteria which has to be taken care of. All right. So first you have to decide where you want to go. So you want to go to Americas, you want to go to Europe, or you want to be in Asia. So if you want to go to Americas is the North America and the South America, the continent as a whole. So there are two major destinations are North America, USA and Canada. All right. So in North America, the only two major destinations are USA and Canada. All right. If you want to go to Europe, then there are UK and there is Germany, there is France, there is Italy, there is Netherlands. So these are the countries in Europe. And in Asia, the major destinations are Singapore, Japan, and even Russia is a destination for some of the people. So these are the destinations in Asia. And in the oceanic region, Australia and the Philippines and this region, those are major destinations are Australia and New Zealand. So these are the top destinations which you have to select continent wise. So that is why I have written continent wise. So suppose now you have fixed that you want to go to Europe. Now you would have to see uh, because most of the countries in Europe have their own language. So you have to also decide language wise. Now, language wise, how does that work? So suppose if you want to go to Germany, so you should be fluent in German. If not fluent, then at least till the B2 level you should have done it because that is compulsory there. If you want to go to France, you should learn French. If you want to go to Netherlands, I mean the education will be in English, but whatever the local languages, you have to learn it. Now suppose if you want to go in Asian region, so the East Asian region, suppose if you want to go to Japan, so you have to learn Japanese. If you want to go to South Korea to study, then you have to learn South Korean. But Korean, the language is same. But if you want to go to Singapore, then you don't need to learn any language because English is the medium of instruction as well as communication. So that is something which you have to keep in mind. But suppose if you select USA to be your destination, then you already know English. All right, you don't have to learn some other language apart from English. So that is something which you have to keep in mind because if you want to go to a country whose language of communication is other than English, then you have to put in extra effort and extra time to learn that language because that would be a compulsory requirement there. All right. Then climate wise. Now this is again the least important factor in the least important criteria. All right. Climate is something that which most of the people are not affected by, but for some of the people out there who are affected by climate, you can say that I don't want to go to Russia because it is too cold there. I don't want to go to Australia because it is too hot there. So that is also something which you need to keep in mind because suppose if you want to go to Canada and you want to go to University of Waterloo, you have fixed that thing. Now you want to see whether I will be able to survive there or not because the temperature drops to minus 40 degrees in the winters. So that is something which you want to take into consideration if you are affected by cold that much. All right, so that is also you need to see in the location criteria. So this is how you should decide on where to go in terms of country, in terms of your destination. Now we come to the more important criteria than location, which are the exam scores. Now these are something which will fix the names of the universities for you. Like the universities, as I have already told you, who take the GRE and TOEFL criteria, the cutoff marks or the minimum marks required in GRE and TOEFL are different for different universities. So suppose you give your GRE and TOEFL and you obtain some certain marks, and then you search the universities based on that criteria, those marks which you have obtained. So the search results will be different for everybody. Suppose the search results for some people who have scored in the range of 320 to 325 will be some particular universities in the United States, and for people who have scored 310 to 315 would be some other universities, and that is how you have to mix and match in that thing. All right, so these marks will decide the names of the universities where you can go or you can apply, because you need to know that the cutoff marks is fixed by the university, and it is not common to some admission process. Like in IIT JEE, the cutoff is decided for all the IITs. So it is not that case for universities abroad. Each university fix its own cutoff marks. All right. So this is something which you have to consider. And the next thing is your CGPA. So uh, talking about Western education, their grade point system is different from ours. We generally grade our subjects out of 10. So our CGPA can be 8 out of 10 or 7.5 out of 10. But there it is out of 4. So it is 3.5 out of 4 or 3 out of 4. So generally, most of the universities, their criteria is minimum of 3 out of 4 GPA you should have. So that also you have to see whether your CGPA converts to that GPA or not. Okay, so that is something which you have to take care of while searching for universities. All right, so these are the three factors, these are the exam scores which would matter in your selection of the universities. All right, so let us move on and see the other important factor, or I would say the most important out of these is the research interest. Your research interest, you should have clarity about the work which you want to do. You should have clarity about the work which is being done in the university, and there should be a match between these two, because if there is not, then you won't have anything to write in the SOP, your statement of purpose. All right, so you have to find out what research work is going in the university of your choice and whether it matches your research interest or not. Because if it doesn't, then you would have some difficulty in proving your candidature worthy for that university. All right, so this is a very important thing which you should see. And in our GATE series, I have already covered how you should go to the university website, see what the research work is being done. In this series as well, for GRE and TOEFL, I would visit the university websites, make videos according to the university and what research work is going on there. All right, so we are going to do that, and we'll definitely going to help you with this. Okay, so the next is the funding, one of the most important. Now, you should be aware about how much money you will spend in the application process before going abroad, and uh, I should tell you that it is not uh, that cheap. Foreign education from a foreign university comes at a good cost, uh, generally more than what is there in India. So you should be prepared for that. You should have that mental attitude. All right, because if you say that I don't want to spend money but I want to go there, so that is not going to happen. Not very easy to do that. All right, extremely difficult if you just want to get in there, and then more difficult than that to attain a scholarship. So even if you get a scholarship, the minimum expenditure will be more than what you have here. All right, for some countries, although for some countries the expenditure can be very less, like Germany, because they don't have tuition fee. So there the expenditure can be very less, but for most of the destinations, may it be Singapore, US, Canada, Japan, Australia, for most of the destinations, the expenditure is quite a bit But for some destinations like Germany, the expenditure is not that much, but the main problem is the language barrier. You would require at least 6 or 7 months extra for the application process if you want to go to a country with the language barrier, because you have to learn the language and give tests in that language. So this is something which you should keep in mind. So the money spent during the application process will be about 1.5 lakh rupees. Before your admission, before you actually go there, you would have to spend somewhat around 1.5 lakh rupees in this. Then the tuition fee, I would give you just a ballpark figure. In US, in moderate universities, tuition fee will be somewhere around 25 to $30,000 per year. 25,000 to $30,000 per annum. In Canada, this tuition fee will be about somewhere around 20 to 25,000 Canadian dollars per annum. In Germany, your whole education will cost you just around 9 lakh rupees, because they don't have tuition fee, just other expenditures will be there. In Singapore, it will be around I would say somewhere around 20 lakh rupees for 2 years, and that is the ballpark figure for these countries. All right, if you want to know more about Singapore, you can check out our other videos, and the link will be in the description. For information on other countries, I'll be making videos, and you should just follow us with that. Okay, so next thing is the living expenses. Now living expenses vary from country to country, but you can generally assume that wherever you go, Germany, US, Canada, Singapore, it will be around $1,000, 1,000 US dollars per month. If you go abroad, that is how much you would spend on your living expense, because there would be rent, there would be food, there would be stationery, so that kind of thing. So $1,000 per month, you can just assume that wherever you go, this much is the amount. Okay, and then now these are the factors where you have to spend. This is something which you can get while studying. So TA, RA and GA. TA stands for teaching assistantship, RA stands for research assistantship, and GA stands for graduate assistantship. So these are the opportunities which the university offers you in your master's degree, because most of the universities don't offer direct scholarships. They offer scholarships through these things. So you will be paid to work under a professor on some particular project, or help him with his teaching and classes and the labs. So that kind of stuff is there, and they will pay you for doing this stuff. And yeah, that can cover up most of your living expenses. And one other benefit, especially in the US, which is given to teaching assistantships and research assistants, is that the people who do these assistantships have to pay less, or almost about half of what their tuition fee is for that semester. So that benefit is there in some universities in US. So if you have a teaching assistantship, you will be paid per month for your work, and you would have to pay less tuition fee. So that is the money which you can save and deduct from your total expenses. So this is something which you have to keep in mind. Okay. So next are the common factors which would affect your selection and your shortlisting. So suppose you have good papers and patents, so you can definitely go for the top universities, the very high above, which are there in the ranking list. So this thing affects papers and patents. Then there is the SOP. As I've already talked about, if you don't have a research interest, it would be very difficult to convince somebody to offer a place at their university. So that is something which you have to build upon. If you have a good SOP, if you have a good SOP, then there are chances of admission even in the top institutions, because their admission process is holistic. As I have already told in previous videos, the admission process to foreign universities is holistic. They just don't stick to one particular cutoff mark. They see the application as a whole. They see your resume, they see your SOP, they see your LOR, they see your CGPA, they see your GRE and TOEFL scores. So that is all which the information is, and you would have to make a very good SOP if you want to maximize your chance. All right. Then there are the LORs. Now you have to make sure that your employers or your supervisors or your professors with whom you have worked write very good LORs to support you, because that can make a difference in your selection. Then CGPA we have already discussed, and work experience. So people who have 1 or 2 years work experience have very good chances of a good admission, because you have been in the field, you have uh, you know, it shows that you have some kind of responsibility towards what you are doing. So work experience also matters. All right, so keep these things in mind also when selecting the universities. All right, so common factors like SOP, LOR, CGPA, work experience, papers and patents, then funding, how much tuition fee you have to pay, how much living expense, then research interests, then exam scores, and then location. So based on all these factors, you can now categorize the universities in which you want to go in 3 categories: ambitious, moderate, and safe. So the ambitious universities will be uh, somewhat out of your reach, because they are the topmost colleges in the world. They require very high marks, very high CGPA, very good resume, very good SOP, excellent LORs. They would also require you should have some work experience, or they would also require you to have some international papers. So those universities which are your dream universities, like dream for everybody, so those will be the ambitious universities. Then moderate universities are somewhat in your reach, not exactly in your reach, but somewhat in your reach, that by tweaking some factors you can get an admission there. All right, so the GRE or maybe TOEFL requirement can be high, but if you have very good SOP or LOR, then maybe you can get into that if you don't have those GRE marks. So these kind of mix and match things you can do, and tweak your some factors which you take into consideration when you apply to get into these universities. So these are somewhat in your reach, and safe universities are those universities which are definitely in your reach. So like the universities which ask for GRE scores of 310 and you have GRE score of 325, then that university is safe for you. All right, so these are the 3 categories which you can make to select the universities and shortlist the universities for application. Now I might tell you that you should shortlist at least 3 from each category: 3 ambitious, 3 moderate, and 3 safe, to maximize your chance. That much you should do. So this is the part 1 of how to shortlist the universities for your application process. So in the part 2, I'm going to tell you about the tools which you use to actually do this procedure. All right, and shortlist the universities in this way. So please wait for part 2 of this video, and please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and click the bell icon for all the future updates. Thank you.